Kira and welcome to another video. Before I get started, I'm actually a little bit sad today that my background is looking a lot more bare than it has been recently. You might remember from my past few weeks of videos that I've had a lot of very green plants behind me because we were sprouting and planting some fruits and vegetables for the garden for our new vegetable patch, which is obviously very exciting. And in particular, we had these incredible courgettes, which were just like huge and so green, and I absolutely loved having them in the background just because I feel like they just looked so vibrant. But because it is now the middle of May, they've now been planted out in the garden, which in one sense is very good because it means that we'll have some courgettes soon. But it's a little bit sad just because I'm going to miss having them in the background. So I've tried to replace them with some flowers and another plant, but I think I definitely need to get some more indoor plants so that I can brighten up this background because I definitely loved having those plants in the background. So I think I might need to invest in some more green plants, which is never a bad thing. But moving back onto today's video, I'm super excited to be sharing my TBR for the Make Your Myth Taker Readathon. So as the title of the Readathon suggests, this is a readathon that is being run by the Mythic book club, which is a book club that I absolutely love. It's run by Charlotte and Ashley, both of whom are absolutely incredible, and I will link both of them down below so you can go and check them out. And I will also link Ashley's video which announces this readathon just so you can go and watch that and get all of the details you'll need if you want to take part, which I would highly recommend doing because Mythic is just such a brilliant book club in general, and this readathon sounds like so much fun. I'll of course also be linking the Mythic book club socials down below so you can go and check them out, but just to give a little bit of background on the book club if you're not familiar with them, it's essentially a book club which is dedicated to reading retellings of myths and folklore stories, which is always so fun, and the monthly and bi-monthly picks are always incredible, and everyone that I've read I've ended up really enjoying. But when it comes to the Make Your Myth Taker readathon, it's actually a little bit less focused specifically on myths, and it's more just a general fantasy style readathon, so you don't need to be super into myths and folklore to take part. It obviously helps if you enjoy fantasy, but aside from that you can really read whatever you want as long as you can fit it along with the prompts. Charlotte and Ashley have put so much effort into making this a really dynamic, creative and just super interesting readathon, and I'm so excited to take part in it. And another reason why I love this readathon so much is because in order to take part and complete your Myth Take character, you only have to read 4 books. Which I just think is amazing because I love readathons, but often they end up having a ridiculous amount of prompts and you end up setting a TBR with hundreds of books in, and it's just not really that feasible to complete. Whereas with this one, to actually fully complete the readathon, you only need to read 4 books, which I just think makes it very accessible, and I feel like it means that so many people are going to be able to fully take part and really throw themselves into the readathon because you just don't have to take on a ridiculously sized TBR. So because this readathon is all about making your Myth Take character, you essentially have 12 choices when it comes to picking your TBR, and each of those choices take you down a particular path that leads you to a specific Myth Take character. These characters are all split into 4 categories, so we have the warriors, the rogues, the sorcerers and the royal court, and then within each of those 4 categories we have 4 paths that you can go down. There's also some really interesting stuff where you can jump between a couple of paths and end up switching characters, which obviously I would suggest going to watch Ashley's video to find out all of the information about that for, because I'm not going to go into all of that now because I'm sure I'll mess it up because it's very, very interesting and so well thought out that I just don't think I've fully grasped all of the incredible detail that's gone into it. But moving on to my TBR, I've decided to focus my attention on the royal court. I think when it comes to fantasies, I love fantasies that have really elaborate royal systems, and the way that the monarchy and the royal court can sort of intertwine with the political system is always so interesting to me, so I just thought that the royal court was the right category for me to focus on. And then, as you may or may not know, I'm a particularly indecisive person. So within the royal court, the 4 characters that I could have chosen from are the monarch, the courtier, the royal spy and the jester. And I'm predominantly going to be focusing my attention on becoming the monarch because why not just shoot for the top role in the Royal Society and just go for that monarch role? I feel like I can do it, so I'm just going to go for it because who doesn't want to be a queen? And then I also liked some of the prompts from the courtier path. And actually the first 2 books in the courtier path match up to the first 2 books that I've picked for my monarch path. So I figure if I manage to complete the full monarch path and read those 4 books, then I can read the additional 2 books I would need to have completed the courtier path as well, and then I can be a monarch and a courtier, because why not? This is fantasy, anything goes. Okay, so let's get straight into it with the first prompt from the Monarch path. I need to read a book which has got a queen as a main character, so I'm going to be choosing A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin, which is the fourth book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series. Now, if you are at all familiar with Game of Thrones as a series, you'll be aware that this is basically a book and TV series which is all about people staking their claims to the Iron Throne, and for that reason I have a couple of queen characters that I can focus on in this book. In particular, we have Daenerys, who is staking her claim to the Iron Throne and believes that she is the rightful queen of Westeros. And then we also have Cersei, who is technically the queen mother because she is Joffrey's mother, but essentially she is a queen as well. And because this book is so focused on various people trying to make their way to the Iron Throne, I'm sure there are lots of other characters as well who I'll come across who end up trying to claim that they are the rightful queen as well. So this one definitely fits the prompt of having not only one, but at least two queen main characters. So in each of the four categories, so warriors, royal court, sorcerers and rogues, the second prompt applies to all four paths. So in the royal court, my second prompt is going to be to read a book which has royal colours on the cover. In this case, it suggests that royal colours are going to be either reds, golds or purples. So I'm going to be picking up The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which clearly has red and gold on the cover, making this an extra royal book. Now, The Song of Achilles is obviously a book which focuses on retelling the story of Achilles, and I'm so excited to read this one. I read Circe by Madeline Miller last summer and I loved it so much. I actually read it as part of Mythic, funnily enough, and I've been wanting to read this one ever since, but just haven't gotten around to it. But now that has worked out perfectly because this book is ideal for the Mythic Readathon because, of course, it is a mythical retelling, which I'm just so excited to get into. I've heard that this one is such an emotional story, and I've literally only heard good things about this book. So I can only imagine that, having loved Circe and heard so many great reviews of this story, that I am going to absolutely love it, and I cannot wait to read it. So prompt number 3 on the path to becoming a monarch is to read the highest book on your TBR. So I just put in the books from my TBR into Goodreads to see which one had the highest average rating, and I was actually really surprised to see that the book that came up as my highest rated on my TBR was And the Mount is Echoed by Khaled Hosseini, which has a 4.06 star rating. I expected it to be a book that was maybe a little bit more popular on BookTube, maybe like a YA book or something, so I was really surprised but very happy to see this book come up because this is one I've been wanting to read for a long time. I've only ever read one Khaled Hosseini book before, which was 1,000 Splendid Suns, which is just one of the most incredible and emotional and well-written stories I think I've ever read. So I've been really wanting to read something else by Khaled Hosseini, and I'm so glad that I can do that during this readathon. So And the Mountains Echoed is a book which is set in Afghanistan, and it focuses on the relationship between a young boy called Abdullah and his younger sister Pari. And I believe that the book focuses on them going on a particularly difficult journey and Abdullah's desire to stay together with his sister and all he will do to try and protect her, and their really, really strong bond, essentially. Now, I know that this book is going to be devastating if it's anything like 1,000 Splendid Suns, because that book was so amazing and created these incredible bonds between characters, and you saw them create such incredible connections, but you also saw them go through some really, really terrible situations. And so I just know this book is going to be so emotional, but I'm really, really looking forward to reading it. And yeah, I'm just so glad because I never would have imagined this would have been the highest rated book on my TBR, and I'm just really looking forward to reading it because, like I said, Khaled Hosseini is such an incredible author, and I would definitely recommend picking up his work if you haven't already because, honestly, so good, and I can't wait to read another one. And then the final prompt I need to meet in order to become a monarch is to reread a favourite, which I just think is such a lovely prompt because I feel like readathons so often can be really focused on reading loads of new books, and often you end up buying loads of new books for readathons. So this one is just really nice because I think it is lovely to go and revisit favourites and reread them and just see how your reading experiences change each time. So the book I'm picking up is actually one that I read for the very first time because of Mythic Book Club, and it was actually the first ever Mythic book that I picked up, and that is The Wren Hunt by Mary Watson. This is a book that I obviously really enjoyed, hence the reason why I want to pick it up, and it's one that I'm really excited to get back into because I just remember loving the dark and moody atmosphere that this book created, and that was honestly my favourite part of this read. This is a book which also focuses on Irish folklore, which I really enjoy. My mum is Irish, so I always find myself being drawn to finding out more about Irish folklore and just more in general about Irish history because it's something that I feel like I don't know all that much about and I'm excited to learn more about. And I also remember when I read this book for the first time last May, so about a year ago now, I mentioned some of it to my mum and she definitely remembered some of the references to certain bits of folklore that it referred to, so I feel like that made it really nice and sort of helped to solidify the reality of certain references that this book makes, which I think is just really nice and definitely added to my reading experience. Like I said, this book focuses on Irish folklore, and in particular we have our main character Ren, who is born into an augur family. Now augurs are people who basically look for certain patterns in nature and use those patterns to make predictions, I believe, and then their oppositions are the judges, who do a similar thing but in a very, very different way. And Ren finds herself caught between these two worlds. It's so interesting and I really, really liked it. It was very dark, very mysterious, atmospheric, absolutely incredible, and I really, really enjoyed it. But I feel like my memory is slightly foggy, so I'm looking forward to rereading it, revisiting it, and just refreshing my mind about all of the sort of darkness and mystery that this world creates. So if I manage to complete all 4 of those books, that will mean I have officially become a monarch and I will be very, very happy. But if I do manage to finish them before the end of June, I'm also going to be adding on an extra couple of books to try and become a courtier as well. So like I said, the first 2 prompts and the books I chose for the monarch path also apply to the courtier path. So in order to become a courtier, I'll only have to read an extra 2 books, and then I will have completed 6 books for the Make Your Myth Taker readathon. So the first prompt for the courtier path, which is a book that I already have mentioned, is to read a book with a big cast of characters. So I'll of course be reading A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin, which, as I've already said, is the 4th book in the Game of Thrones book series. And obviously, if you are at all familiar with Game of Thrones at all, you will know that this is a book series which has a ridiculously large cast of characters. So this book is probably the most ideal pick I could have for this prompt, because literally it doesn't get much bigger and more elaborate than George R.R. Martin, I don't think. And then, like I said, the second prompt for all 4 categories is the same for each of the 4 paths in that group. So I'm of course going to be reading The Son of Achilles, which is a book which has royal colours on the cover, red and gold. And then the third prompt for the courtier path, and of course the first additional book I'll need to pick up if I'm going to continue on with this path, is to continue with a series that you've already started. Now, as I mentioned a minute ago, I'm going to be reading The Wren Hunt as part of my monarch path, and I really, really am excited to reread this book. But this book also has a companion novel which is called The Wicca Light, which is the book that I've been meaning to get to literally since I finished The Wren Hunt last summer. So it has been a long time on my TBR and I really, really want to finally get to it. Now, I'm not entirely certain if this officially counts as a series, because I believe that they are more companion novels rather than direct continuations. But I do believe that The Wicca Light focuses on the same cast of characters, or at least some of the same characters. And again, it focuses on that sort of dispute between the judges and the augurs and that area of Irish folklore. And so I feel like they are connected enough, being part of the same world and focusing on some of the same characters, that despite having different protagonists, we can count them as part of a series, or at least I'm going to be counting it as part of a series for this prompt, and I'm really, really excited to read it. Clearly my copy hasn't arrived yet, but it is currently on its way to me, and because I won't be reading this one until later on in June, once I've read my first 4 books, I think it'll definitely arrive on time. And then the final prompt on the courtier path is to read one of the host's favourites. So like I've already mentioned, this readathon is being hosted by Charlotte and Ashley, who also own Mythic Book Club, and they both released a Google Doc with 6 of their favourite books so that you could pick one of those books to read if you needed to read one of their favourites. Now, there were some excellent picks on there and a few that I really want to get to at some point, but the one that I have picked up for this readathon in particular is one of Ashley's favourites, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now again, this is another book that has been on my TBR for a really long time. This has just been in my mental TBR as a book that I just always hear people talk about, and it's a book that really only gets praise. I don't think I've ever heard someone say that they haven't enjoyed this book, and so it's a book that I've been always thinking about and has been on my radar for quite some time, but for some reason I've just never gotten around to. And so because this one was one of Ashley's favourites and it was right there looking at me in the face, I just thought it was the perfect time to finally pick it up, because although there were some other incredible books on both Charlotte and Ashley's lists, I just felt like that one was kind of staring at me because it has been on my radar for so long. So I am again really excited to get to that one. So that brings my Make Your Myth Taker TBR to an end. I'm honestly so excited for this readathon. Like I said, it's so creative and I've been looking forward to this one ever since it was announced, and I'm now so excited that we're almost in June because I really cannot wait to start reading the books I've picked because I'm so excited to read all of them. Now, if you're not planning to take part in this readathon, rethink that. Go over to Ashley's channel, watch the announcement video, find out what this readathon is all about, and pick a TBR because I just think this readathon is going to be so much fun. And of course, the more people that take part, the more fun it will be. And if of course you are already planning to take part, let me know which path you've selected and which books you're going to be picking up for your TBR, maybe if we've got any of the same books on our TBR. I cannot wait for this readathon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.